etc. So it's good to, in your conversations with your friends, neighbors, and relatives, is to shake them up. I mean, when you meet somebody and someone says, how's your social life? You say, that's okay, how's your civic life? Talk to them in big talk. Big talk is what changes the world, not small talk. Small talk gets us through the day. You know, oh, it's cold today. How do you feel? Fine, even though you feel lousy. So, it's big talk. And in your history, you started engaging in big talk with the cooperative movement, which I know now is seen as stale and stagnant and sort of declining. But just think of the excitement in the early 20th century when people like Alvin Johansen and Martin Sundell, who young Swedes don't even know about, developed this concept of how do we break the cartels? How do we break the monopolies? How do we own our own businesses? How do we develop retail, insurance, financial, cooperatives? And it's a marvel of marketing, a marvel of organization as millions of Swedes became cooperatives. And of course, in the chapter of economic history in this country, that was a great, great transformation. But because the participants were not interested in the overall economic vision, they didn't show up at meetings, the cooperatives began mimicking the commercial counterparts. And when they mimic the commercial counterparts, they're going to lose. Because commercial counterparts can out-market them, and out-display them, and out-advertise them. So it is important to keep all this in mind, and then ask ourselves, look at the tremendous capabilities we now have to solarize the world with renewables of all kinds. It's here, it's proven, here, there, everywhere. China is way ahead now in the production of solar cells, ahead of the United States. Just in 5 years, they zoomed ahead. Germany is way ahead of the United States. But they have proven that it's now, shall we say, cost effective, as if it never was. But solar energy, I mean, wind power was around for years, right? We learned about Holland through windmills. You ask Americans about Holland, the first thing they see are windmills in their minds. And passive solar architecture started with the ancient Greeks, East Africans, and ancient Persians over 2,000 years ago. Now we have to modify them, renovate them, bring them up, focus them, increase their efficiency. Raw material utilization, ready for spectacular breakthroughs. 5, 10, 20 times more efficient from a unit of natural resource, whether it's fossil fuels or whether it's copper, zinc, various materials. There's been a tremendous revolution in this area, and it's beginning to be picked up, but not fast enough. Why? Because it means lower sales for these materials. So they're vested interests in waste and inefficiency that have to be counteracted by a more aroused consumer. I just want to end on this note. How many of you have ever heard of Amory Lovins? He's the energy advocate, renewable energy, a physicist. Well, he also consults with electric utilities and tries to get them to invest in megawatts instead of megawatts. That is, you invest in conservation of energy and they get paid for it in their relations with their customers. Instead of building 1,000 megawatts, you save 1,000 megawatts. And he wrote a book in 1999, which didn't get much attention, with Paul Hawken and Amory's wife, Hunter Lovins, which made a number of declarations. And one of them particularly caught my attention when he said, and he gives a lot of examples, like Interface and other companies, and shows how the large companies have increased energy conservation in their factories and offices, but they're still producing products that aren't keeping up in terms of their energy. Appliances, for example, or motor vehicles. So he says this. He looks at global warming and he says, it is not a burden, it is not a cost problem, it is a efficiency and profit and jobs opportunity, which is so obvious. If you want the stagnation of existing technologies, you are going to say, if we deal with global warming, it's going to take trillions of dollars, it's disruption, it's going to employ millions of workers. What Lovins has demonstrated is how do you deal with global warming? You make the technologies on the ground more efficient. You use the materials more efficient. You don't engage in fractured natural gas and release huge amounts of methane, which are 20 times more serious than carbon dioxide. And when you do that, people get better value for their consumer dollar, they get less pollution on the ground, and the consequence is diminished greenhouse gases. So this he sees as an economic opportunity to displace the antiquated technologies, to create more decentralized jobs, more innovative businesses, and in the process, to redefine the nature of profit while we save the planet from its global warming. So he says it in one word, one sentence. Every output of manufacturing should be either composted into natural nutrients or remanufactured into technical nutrients, that is, it should be returned to the ecosystem, or recycled for further production. That's called closed-loop production. 11 years ago, that was a $53 billion business in the United States. So it's not pie in the sky. It's not some wild-eyed theory. 11 years ago, remanufacturing was that large a business. And in his inevitable optimism, he shows things that you would believe and you would challenge it. Like only about 1% of all materials mobilized to serve America is actually made into products and still in use 6 months after sale. He says the U.S. economy is not even using 10% energy efficiency as the laws of physics allow. Just the energy thrown off as waste, heat, by U.S. electric power stations equals the total energy use of Japan. One physicist told me the principal use of a conventional electric generating company is to heat the heavens. So, I'll leave you with this. I always like ancient proverbs because I want to prove that people were wise before the internet. There's an ancient saying in China, not all that ancient, 14th century, Ming Dynasty, that we should really take to heart. Because never in human history has the gap between capability for the pursuit of happiness, the abolishment of poverty, the redefinition of what humanity is all about, and peace and justice. No time in human history have we had more capability, more knowledge, more actual pilot projects to make it happen. And there's never been a bigger gap between the promise of our country and its corporate indentured performance. And so, here's the saying. When you hear it, you're not likely ever to forget it. Like all sayings, it has a little exaggeration, but it has a great core of truth to it, which should produce a moral imperative on our part. And the saying is, to know and not to do is not to know. To know and not to do is not to know. How will it change the routine of all our peoples so that they become more civic, more engaged, so that their private lives can be enhanced by their public citizen responsibilities? Thank you.
Have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall it kill